We're recording. I'm going to stream. Hopefully we're streaming. We'll give it 10 seconds for people to show up online. All right, here we go. Hello everybody, my name is Bill Kafer. You may know me as Taco Bill. Today we're going to be doing some OCS top 16 matches between Joe Olson and Timo Dusel. I am joined today, hopefully you can hear him, by fellow top 16 OCS participant Mike Kessling. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, lovely to have you here for some of this playoff action here. So we've got, like I said, Joe Olson versus Timo Dusel. Mike, you had the opportunity to pick both of these players. What made you steer away from that?
I actually leaned into ease of scheduling my games more than anything, so I stuck with people in the Eastern time zone that were not on my team. Um, I also both really good players. I mean, everyone in the top 16 is good, so I really just looked at like what would be the easiest for me. Dylan's a wild card. I'll be interested to see what he brings. He's got a pretty aggressive style typically, and Joe has a wide range, so it's going to be interesting to see which decks these two picked. I think we saw in Slack yesterday that Dillen at least let Joe know he's not playing either of the new top objectives, so we can rule those out.
That was very nice of him. Yeah, so we're waiting for the players here. It looks like Dylan has posted a table up. He's going to be playing Dark Side first. How do you feel about the Dark Side first choice? Obviously, we don't know what it is yet, but do you lean one side or the other, or are you really looking at what the decks you played?
I think it really depends on the decks you're playing and what you anticipate your opponent to play.
We can make a couple projections here on what they're playing before we jump in. Anything jump out at you as something we're expecting them to play?
So I've already clicked in. I see what
So have I.
I've seen the deck.
All right, so Dylan has chosen to go with the Thrawn objective. Great tactician creates plans. Joe going with Quiet Mining Colony, which we saw his teammate Jeff play earlier in the week. Just give me a quick, what do you think about this right away?
I'm not surprised to see Joe playing QMC. He played it at the Consolation Tournament at Euros and said that that would have been his day two deck had he made it. So he thinks highly of the deck, obviously, and I think this is now his third appearance in the top 16 thus far. I've seen Timo play a good amount of Thrawn over the last year, so this is not too big of a surprise from him. I'm interested. I have a sense of what I think this matchup will go, but I'm interested to see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a battle over Bespin. I think multiple systems that Thrawn is going to play is going to actually help Joe because he's not confined to Bespin, right? If he needs to leave, he can. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what ground package Timo's gone with. I know a lot of the walkers aren't going to be able to make it to a lot of the Cloud City sites there, maybe just the docking bay. So it'll be interesting to see if he prioritizes maybe the 2-2 on Lothal versus trying to invade a little bit into Bespin.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. To me, depending on the ground package, it could be very lopsided for Joe. He should be able to stay alive in space. If he can get a fully loaded wild card up there, like maybe Celebration will stick, and he should be able to push through a lot of damage on the ground.
Yeah, I agree. So we see the players here. Timo's taking his first turn. He starts, the Thrawn's art collection with the objective, Imperial Arrest Order non-combo, Alert My Star Destroyer V, and Endor Shield. I saw him take Admiral Ozzel and Grand Admiral Thrawn with Endor Shield, and also General Veers with a command. So probably that Walker package for the ground there. And then Joe on the other side, starting with the extra site here, the Upper Plaza Corridor, along with the Belden's Eye combo and the Keeping the Empire Out Forever. Two players here grabbing shields and stuff, and then we'll get into the game in earnest here in a second.
Yep, so far, pretty typical start for both players. Timo's going for a system. Some of these decks elect to play Kessel, some play Kashyyyk. All right, so here's Kashyyyk. So that allows him to drain for 2.
Now, do you think
I anticipate we'll see a Thrawn and Chimera probably to Bespin.
Yep, that's what I was going to ask, is do you think he's going to go right to Bespin? Typically, the QMC first turn space is going to be that Hark in Overseer. which is not going to be able to contest that Chimera very well, especially if he adds, Ozzel, or maybe he found a who's the captain whose name eludes me, Pelion. So we'll see if he maybe just drops down and runs away. It'll also be interesting to see how many alternatives to fighting are in the deck.
I would anticipate, a minimum of one, but it wouldn't shock me if there are multiple. Two or probably two. But it could be a minimum of one.
All right, so Teemo with Thrawn and Chimera. And just Thrawn and Chimera, so no Ozzel on there. And then also grab the Coruscant Docking Bay from Special Edition, so a nice 1-0. He'll have 11 to start his next turn, depending on what Joe does. Joe here doing his standard Belden's Eye, revealing Harksef and the Overseer. And he'll get 9 force for his first turn.
Anything on his hand, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him go for a first turn flip.
Yeah, those are interesting with QMC. It's a lot easier now because you've got a lot of different characters who can deploy for cheap or for free, and then can all shuttle to that 1-0 that's always going to be on table. I want to pull up the PC Twitch. That's what I'm doing, just to make sure if people are watching and talking in chat there. That we get them as well. Oh god, that's not what I wanted to do. Get them as well. Okay.
Right.
All right, so Joe grabbing a site
Joe's
here.
taking a turn here. Yeah, I was just commenting. If so, depending on his hand that he may first turn flip, we'll see what site he goes with. The docking bay is typically a pretty critical component of that. Obviously, he can pull that after he flips, so we'll see if he activated it or not. That would also impact what he does this turn.
Silver Glenn in the chat is pointing out that Hark is not as good away from Bespin, and we may see him land if the docking bay is in his reserve deck on turn 1. And he can also, consolidate with the rest of those aliens if there's a first turn flip.
Yeah, exactly. I would be very surprised to see him fly the Overseer away somewhere. Not nearly as strong away from Bespin, and usually these Thrawn decks have anywhere between 3 to 4 ships in total, so you would anticipate that Dillen would fairly easily be able to come after Joe.
James pointing out some extra...
And he'll be relatively safe on the ground.
Yes. Probably yes. James pointing out the extra activation from Hark, getting at least one from the 1-0 docking bay and the 2-0 site that gets started with the objective. Always good to pull a Twix. Now power 6 Twix. So there's Yoxgit. He's one of those aliens I was talking about that deploys for free. And then look at that, the other alien that deploys for free. So Calfin Sindros down to the North Corridor. So that does flip QMC to the 7 side. For a cost of, 3 force to flip your objective and have it stayed flipped for the rest of the game is nice.
And fully anticipate we'll see him now pulling the docking bay, pull a card or two out of his force pile, land for free, and the real question will be, what does he consolidate at the 1-0, or does he feel confident in whatever evasion or barriers he has in his hand to leave anybody out? Even just unlikely he really wants to pay to drain early on, but he also might see an opportunity just to start pushing damage, knowing this is match play.
Yeah, I'm wondering if even because he's got 6 cards to go through in his force pile here, he kind of has his choice of just about everything. I wonder if maybe he grabs alternatives to fighting too and just kind of leaves it like this, right? And then if he has a path in his hand, he should feel pretty safe. If he has a barrier, he should feel fairly safe.
Yeah, that's true. Alternatives opens up a lot of options for Joe. And there's not really any canceller for Darkseid, is there?
That is a great question.
It might even be, I think it's immune to sense. No. That portion is not immune to sense. So I think that may be the only counter to it, but I would be surprised if Timo is running Sense.
There is a card that cancels it. It is a not very often played card, but I've definitely put it in decks before, and this is Some Rescue. Destiny 6 used interrupt. It also cancels out of commission.
I can confidently say I have never played with that card. I did know it was from A New Hope, but I couldn't even tell you the Destiny or the picture on this card.
It's Destiny 6. It's great.
You're leaving out the other cards that cancels. Plastoid Armor. I'm Here to Rescue You. Cell 2187 or Ewok Rescue. So lots of value in that.
Listen, I left them out for a reason.
I will say that card may slide into my playables box as just you never know. Not worth having a one of with you when you're traveling. All right, so we do see Joe pass turn, 4-force up. So he's even hedging if Timo has a first strike, he can play alternatives through that. Well, now you see him search his force well. So depending on, he now may be digging for that alternatives or some other answer that he needed, but depending on when he did that on the turn, he could have at least played around first strike.
I'm sorry, I'm down a little rabbit hole. I didn't realize Ewok Rescue was actually a card too, so that's good.
The more you know.
Timo starting his turn with 12 force active here. Will not be able to drain to get that first card stacked on Thrawn.
Yeah, that's actually pretty consequential. I was going to say the longer that he can have anything parked in front of this Chimera, like, it really takes some of the edge off of this Thrawn deck. Like, the advantage of Thrawn is getting a quick jump on the opponent, putting pressure on them. Obviously, you're very powerful in space, but a lot of what the deck is trying to rely on is to start hammering damage early and to put the light side player in a situation where they're maybe stacking things on the artwork card that they don't want to stack. The mechanics on that revolve around the destiny number of cards, and so sometimes depending on your hand you may or may not have the right things to stack. But the way that Joe has been able to maneuver this, we assume he has alternatives, that's going to slow Timo down considerably. And now you see him deploy the 2/2 Lothal Sight with the Emperor there. I like this play from Timo. He's likely pretty safe, and that allows him to get around paying for drains, extra activation, and start pushing some damage through of his own.
Yep, also grab the Executor Docking Bay there, which actually turns out as a 1/1 with Harko still on the table. We see him battle here into the Overseer, but we do see that alternatives to fighting played and then subsequently grabbed. So that's going to get more expensive as the game goes, and Joe may not have access to it, depending on how many he runs.
Yeah, I think that was a must grab for Timo.
But yeah, I definitely agree. Emperor to the 2/2 there, where he can, generate one extra force, get two more from the 2/2, be immune to attrition. You don't expect QMC to be running a lot of weapons now, right? And then also able to pull force lighting if he's playing it, so he can protect against maybe somebody small. I like that play.
Yeah, I mean, conceivably he could have like an EPP Luke or an EPP Obi-Wan, but in the last few years, I would say QMC has shifted more towards the watering hole build that likely has the Luke the Last Jedi in it. So it's possible he could have EPPs, but they have been less common outside of EPP Lando.
Yeah, and if I am remembering correctly from Jeff's game, I don't think I saw an Obi at all. It's entirely possible he's running maybe Obi and Radiant 7. But yeah, and it's probably either similar or the same list that Jeff was running. All right, so Joe here getting 16 force, having used it all last turn, so he's grabbing a card now with keeping the Empire out forever. I don't want to turn that off because that
fair point from, I believe, ND Gamer is Charlie Arlinson, that Jeff probably played a very similar, if not identical, list previously in the OCS. So, and that one did have EPP Lando.
Yeah, that's how he won the game, I think, right? Path EPP Lando over. All right, so Joe.
That sounds right. I think there was a barrier on a reacting trooper.
Yep. Joe draining here at the North Corridor and the guest quarters, and Timo losing Image of the Dark Lord from hand and Imperial Enforcement from reserve deck. Image makes sense. You're not going to be able to image any of the QMC locations. But Enforcement off the top seems like a big loss.
Not a card you want to see go. You've built your deck with that card in mind since you're excluding powerful characters like Maul. And it just allows you to filter through your deck. Battling for free is not inconsequential. So yeah, if that's not a card I'd want to see go if I were Timo.
Down comes the docking bay from Joe.
It's definitely less important. I agree with you, Justin, but not inconsequential. So we see Maz come out in front of Emperor, so he is going to put some pressure on. I think this is largely because he's definitely going to. This tells me he's going to land the Overseer this turn, and he wasn't going to want to eat 5 damage if possible.
Interesting. I think he probably has the Ancient Watering Hole in hand, right? And doesn't that make Maz immune to attrition also?
It does.
So
maybe he is just moving Maz in. We'll see, but
yeah, that also is a play he could make here. I mean, he's up to 3 aliens. If he had, say, 2 more in his hand and an Ancient Watering Hole, he could do a lot of damage to that Emperor. At least make him take some overflow.
we see a big time disparity here already. Joe has he's done with 34 minutes on his clock. Obviously, it's early to be talking about clock, but it's an 8-minute differential. So, yeah, we do see Maz just walk in.
Yeah, and so Joe probably found that second alternatives, right, if he's going to leave the Overseer here this turn. And that's going to allow him to do a couple extra points of damage next turn if Dillen doesn't do anything about that Maz. All right, so Joe drawing up to 12 cards in hand, leaving 8 force behind, and he'll be able to search up 1 more card from his force pile. Timo activating 17 here on turn 3.
So if you're Timo, what are you hoping to accomplish this turn?
So he did draw up some cards last turn, right? So that makes me think he's trying to find something where he can go to ground, or looking for something like maybe an overload. So depending on what he found, I think those could be interesting options. I'm going to interrupt myself here to talk about this drain of 2 that's going to get It Could Be Worst and then subsequently canceled by Tarkin's orders. So a nice little back and forth there real quick. I'm trying to either chew through those alternatives or set myself up in space, right? So you're getting drained for 2, 1, and 1 on the ground right now. You'd want to do something to Maz if you can help it, but I guess she's not immune right now. So that seems pretty good. That or you want to set up in space so he can't run when he eventually does go to space, I think. I also don't play a ton of Thrawn, so...
Yeah, I agree with that. My sense would be, obviously, you want to chew through the alternatives, but also start pushing through some additional damage. So if he can expand to another system, that's what I would be looking to do this turn. Almost any character that draws would be able to hopefully clear Maz at the moment.
As long as he doesn't draw 1.
But you have to anticipate he likely has an It's a Trap or something to... Well, he only has 5 force left. So if you're able to fight in both theaters, that wouldn't happen. And Timo is sitting on 18 force.
Yeah, so that drain of 2 did go through. We saw off the top of reserve, Joe lost an Arcona and Kira. Now Timo coming down with Blizzard 4, paying the 2 force via Goldenrod to get Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, which is a great character to have running around on Cloud City. And as he's deployed, Harksef also pulls out another site for Joe. That's the incinerator.
So he's not going to establish in space this turn, because you see Ninth Sister go down against KFC.
Yeah, Ninth Sister, another great character to have running around on Bespin. Ninth Sister.
Yeah, so he's used his grabber on alternatives, which we definitely agreed with, but now Joe's going to be able to run wild with barriers and paths and things jumping around on Cloud City.
Yeah. Have to see if Teemo can find maybe a tentacle or something special planned for them. Grab another card. All right, so Ninth Sister got barrier. Teemo went to his battle phase where he's going to initiate against the Overseer here. With 4 force, he can't play alternatives, right? He's got to pay 2 and then use 3.
Yeah, you need 5.
Okay, so after that barrier, and Joe's asking that in the chat, after that barrier, he no longer has the 5 force. So that's interesting. I think that's a mistake from Joe. Yeah, he says he miscounted.
That's costly.
So that if you're Teemo, I think that's what you wanted to accomplish this turn, huh?
It's never good to play it on your opponent making a mistake, but it's always nice to get to capitalize on it. Yeah, Joe's saying he miscounted.
Yeah. All right, so with this battle going through, Thrawn's going to get 2 Destiny. Overseer is going to get a Destiny to power, which we'll draw first, and that's a 4, so that's going to be 9 power. So Joe will end up having to stack a card at least. And then 2 Destiny for Thrawn. The first one is a 2. It's Captain Kurgi. Second one is a 4. That's a command. So he's going to be 18 to 9 here.
Correct.
And yeah, Harksef is only forfeit 4. So Hark and the Overseer are going to go here.
That's a big momentum swing, and now Joe is paying to drain on his turn. If he even opts to, you'd at least expect to see Maz pay. But now he's going to have to find wild card or establish other resources to get back in space to really have a chance in this game.
Yeah. And yeah, good point about activation too. His activation drops from 18 to 15.
Yeah.
So Hark and the Overseer will cover here. Joe stacking a Path of Least Resistance on the art card, art collection. Vader's going to get out. Teemo's going to pull Battle Order, which we just talked about. Vader's going to move over, so Teemo's starting to spread a little bit here.
Notably, that's a drain -1 site, but Vader's not doing him much sitting with Blizzard 4, so he's got to start walking him in. And I would imagine next turn he'll be moving into the guest quarters.
Yeah, in absolute worst case, it's a site to hold for Battle Order.
Now, I mean, he's on 4 sites now, so it's probably less of a consideration.
Hey, man, anything's possible, all right? Kevin Garnett told me that. All right, so Teemo drawing up 3 cards here, paying for Blizzard 4. Definitely in a fantastic position now. Joe will get 15 force this turn and has 4 saved. So we're going to have 19 to choose from. Going to try to Maz to get an alien first. Grabs Ayla Secura. Here is Thrawn Pincer just as a used 6, I think, just to add 1 to hyperspeed.
Yep. He's just getting that back in his life force. Joe goes for his once per turn force pile pull. So now, in Joe's position, what path do you see him trying to take to at least minimize the differential here?
Well, he needs to establish himself in space again, right? I think you'd agree with that. It's a matter of whether he tries to fight into Thrawn at Bespin, which I would not recommend, or set up at Lothal or Kashyyyk. To do that, he's probably going to need Wild Card, or perhaps Han, Chewie, and Falcon at least, to at least have some staying power, some immunity, some power to fight against a Star Destroyer, right? Wild card can get kind of out of hand pretty quick if you get 2 or 3 smugglers on there, and also finding ancient watering hole is going to be a priority, right? So we can set up those extra drains on the ground.
Yep, and I agree with you. I mean, it's critical he gets in space. The issue for him is like battling through Chimera is going to be challenging, and so that just starts allowing Thrawn to, one, churn more damage, one more stack, and Teemo will flip, which isn't necessarily hugely consequential, but at this point, Dillen's just trying to put through as much damage as possible.
Yeah, and that extra 3 power in battles is not nothing, right? And especially if you're battling a Thrawn site, you can pull a card off and then immediately replace it. Alright, so Joe has the West Gallery here, so I think that's the last of his Cloud City sites, but I imagine that signals he's going to try to go a little bit wider here, right?
It also puts one more site between Vader and Yoxkit, and at least helps boost his activation back a bit.
Yeah.
And you see Teemo in chat noting that as well. The way for Vader gets longer and longer, he says.
Carl has brought up your favorite character in chat. I don't know if you are reading chat or not.
I am a fan of Dan.
Actually, Dan's in chat too, so you gotta figure that one out.
Figuring Dan in the modal nodes, I'll be specific. All right, so Joe's taking some time to think. Here comes Han, Chewie, Falcon. So that gets him the foothold in space. He likely has another barrier. So if I'm him, I'm feeling fairly safe about my ability to run around and not have to pay to drain. So now it's like, how can he potentially mitigate some damage or start pushing some through of his own?
Right. He also essentially said he has the other alternatives to fighting, right? Like, because he was confused why he couldn't play it.
Which will take 5 force, though, so at least for the time being, I think he's probably just going to rely on barriers back up. And you see Ayla and EPP Lando come down now in front of 9th Sister.
Yeah, so that's going to get him 3 Destiny and a shot here at 9th Sister.
And he so he verified, so you knew he must have liked his Destiny, but 4 is just enough.
Yeah, because she's defense value 3. She's -2 when you have a weapon there.
Yeah, where there's a weapon.
So she is hit, forfeit 0. Teemo playing History, Philosophy, Art to add 1 to total battle Destiny.
Which makes me think that he does not have Gick in his hand. So this could be a substantial amount of overflow.
Yeah, so there's a 3 for Destiny, a 5 for Destiny. And a 2 for Destiny. So that's going to be 19 total for Joe here. Now he's going to redraw the 2.
Yeah, Yoxkit allows you to redraw on aliens or independent ships.
So a 4 instead. That gives him 21. Teemo is going to draw a 6. That's good. That's going to turn into a 7 for total battle Destiny. So 21 to 12, a difference of 9. 7 attrition, Ayla will cover. And there is.
So he does have the Gick. Yeah, I mean, the backside of QMC gives every alien immunity less than 4. So he also may have had multiples of the history philosophy art card in his hands, and just having an opportunity to play it to get it back in his life force also could be. There may not be all that many battles.
So what do you think about the potential of grabbing that Gick there?
Well, what other cards do you think Timo could have that you'd even consider grabbing? Imperial Command is probably the easiest one to start with.
Yep. History philosophy art is always in consideration for me to grab.
I think it's unlikely Joe's going to get in multiple beatdowns this game, so that's probably the card I would be targeting. It's also a 5 that can keep going back.
Would it change your answer if you were playing against somebody else, right? So like against Timo, I might think about grabbing that card just because he tends to play a little bit more aggressive. I mean, we saw him throw the Emperor down, we saw him throw the Ninth Sister down, he's got one person at each site, and we saw the previous QMC game end in a beatdown.
I mean, maybe that's a consideration. I think Timo's also been probably playing this way knowing he had the Gick in his hand, which allows him to play fairly aggressively. And now that he's baited it out, I think it's unlikely that there's going to be another beatdown in this game. I could be wrong, but we'll see.
All right, so what has happened this turn? Timo looked at his deck after activating about half of his force to find a Force Lightning, but did not find one. Joe grabbed a card with his objective, with keeping the Empire out forever. Timo drained for 2 at the system. The Maz Kanata that we saw redrawn last turn got stacked. So that's a 2 that got stacked. And then Din Djarin and Wildcard went off the reserve deck, so that's pretty big. And then a drain of 1 at the docking bay, Jar Jar Binks off of reserve deck. And now that Timo...
as soon as I say there's not going to be another beatdown, he starts playing characters. So you never know. The nice thing is he controls Bestman, so all of his characters are deployed -1. Matt also called out in chat that history, philosophy, and art can recur Gick, which I had forgotten about the lost function on that card.
Oh, wow. I don't think I knew the lost
function. It
essentially
says when you study something, an artwork card, you can play that as lost interrupts or return an interrupt from your lost battle to hand.
Okay. Well, we saw, let's see, this is Merrick Steele and Grand Moff Tarkin come down to the North Corridor. General Veers came down to the guest quarters. Timo initiated battle at the North Corridor against Cal Fal and Lando. Lando is going to shoot Tarkin and does hit him, so he is going to be forfeit 0. Both players drawing 2 destiny here. Don't see.
So yeah, we'll see how well Timo draws, because it's likely that this site will just clear.
Yeah, both light side characters are forfeit 5, so if he can draw 6 and 2 destinies, then he does have that chance to redraw. Looks like he's going to path Yoxgit into the battle. So now...
then it almost assuredly Joe will have something left at this site.
Alright, so 2 destinies each. Timo draws a 4. And a 6. So that's going to be 10. That's going to clear 2 guys. Not quite getting all 3, though. I think Yoxgit will be able to stay. And then Joe drawing a 3, which will get redrawn. That's the Dash Rendar V into the hand. So draws a 4.
Yeah, it's notable that it not only does it cause a redraw that it goes into hand, it just helps. While Joe's not really drawing any cards this turn, it helps keep his hand size up. Still has some velocity and characters coming in.
Yep. So both players drew, I think it was 9 in attrition for Joe and 10 for Timo. So Lando and I forget who was there already. Cal Fao will go lost for Joe. Both characters go lost for Timo. Darth Vader is going to move over to the West Gallery here. I expect Veers will as well. Yep, there he goes. Yeah, and Matt in the chat is saying that Joe should not have drawn there. Once you see that Timo has drawn 10, you know that Lando and Calfal will cover, and maybe he's correct that you just don't draw Destiny. And now he's got just Merrick Steel sitting there, and there's no way for him to draw Destiny that I can think of would be in this deck beyond maybe like a sneak attack.
All right, it would have at least forced him to retreat to the 0-1 and then given Joe an opportunity to potentially counterbeat. But yeah, Justin just says he could have moved Veers in from there.
That's true.
Well,
yeah, they both could have moved to that upper plaza corridor. Oh, I did not see that Timo also moved the Chimera over to Lothal to sit in front of Han Chewie and the Falcon.
So he's, I mean, very clearly struggling to find a second ship.
Yeah. We see Joe Maz here. He did pick up Eller's Madak. Timo played another shield. It was Secret Plans. So he will keeping here. He's activated all but 2 in his deck, and we saw those 2 already, right? Because those should be the shot and the first Destiny. Yeah, Matt, he was at the guest quarters. So yeah, what I was gonna say is if Joe's gonna find a ship, it's in his force pile this turn. And someone in chat pointed out, I think it was Carl, that this could be a turn where you could set up Celebration if you're Joe. You can get somebody else to a Bespin site, play the Celebration, and then move the Falcon over, knowing you still have at least one alternative to fighting, right?
Yeah, and this seems like a turn where momentum may swing in this game. Depending on what Joe's hand is like, because he could go fairly wide. And it's unlikely, I mean, some of Dylan's best fighting options have likely already been used.
Yeah, I mean, when Tarkin's gone, but you might have another Tarkin. Ninth Sister is gone.
Probably
Vader's on the table.
He probably has a EPP Mara.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have that many threats, I would imagine, that are able to get to Cloud City. We see a Blizzard 2 lost off the top.
Yeah, and a second Veers from hand. That's interesting.
He had a trample earlier, so obviously I don't think QMC was what he was anticipating.
Yeah, battle deployment also going off the top of reserve. Here's Toss Ka coming down for 3 force to the incinerator. There's that Celebration.
And between alternatives and a likely barrier, he's probably safe this turn. And I'm going to have to pause for a second. I'll be right back. I'm getting a work call.
Okay. Yeah, Justin pointing out in chat, no immediate masterful move combo. You may want to save that for right before you drain, though, just so that it can't be retrieved in any way. There is Luke Skywalker, the Last Jedi. Coming down to the North Corridor. Rey comes down to Leia's guest quarters. And Rey also draws the bottom card of Force Pile. Yeah, now that Rey has drawn that, Gravity Shadow would be a big blowout just because he's going to have to spend a Force to move, which even if Gravity Shadow cancels it, that Force is still gone, and then he would only have 4 Force, which is not enough to play that alternatives in his hand. Idea Trek, this is our second stream of the day. We saw Sam Tashima earlier beat Bill Pittman by 3 with clones against Court. That's on the main Star Wars CCG Twitch channel. And I think they're playing roughly the same time tomorrow. Alright, so Joe moves over Han Chewie and Falcon. No Gravity Shadow this turn. At least. So has kind of set himself up well. He's going to be able to spend a couple Force to cancel a drain, potentially, since he can't alternatives anyway. Teemo's still going to be able to do a drain of 1, a ping of 1 with Art Collection, drain of 2 with the Emperor, and a drain of 1 at Blizzard, at the docking bay with Blizzard 4. And then likely that West Gallery one will get canceled.
Yeah, overall, I'm back. It seems overall, though, a fairly good turn for Joe.
Yeah, I think he did what he needed to do to not let this spiral out of complete control, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think establishing celebration, and he likely has a barrier in his hand. So if Teemo is able to attack him in space this turn, he's going to barrier. And if not, you know that he's going to at least get a turn off with alternatives on a subsequent turn. So he should be able to retrieve a fair amount of cards to offset some of this damage that Teemo's doing.
Well, he is down to 17 in Life Force and 10 in hand. So that alternatives is going to cost 5. That retrieval is going to cost 3, right now. And if he wants to keep canceling one of those drains, that's going to cost 1. So that doesn't leave him a lot of Force to do a lot with, so I might actually see him abandon the alternatives at some point.
Yeah, but the question is, will he even need it, depending on what Teemo's hand is like.
So here's the drain at Lothal. The card that got stacked is Don't Tread on Me. And then Joe losing I Don't Like Sand from hand. A drain of 2 at the capital city. Joe losing Menace Fades and What Chance, both from reserve. A drain of 1 at the docking bay. That will get canceled. Using 1 Force with the North Corridor. And then a drain of 1 at the West Gallery. And Hoojix from Used Pile going lost. Teemo's going to check his reserve deck here. There is Tentacle for a second grabber.
And also makes Barrier Lost, which is very relevant in this matchup, depending on how many more times he threatens.
Down comes Governor Price for 3 to the Imperial Complex, the 2-0 on Lothal. And that second Grand Moff Tarkin that we posited. Tarkin's going to get barriered, which will go through. It's going to get grabbed, which is an interesting choice, I think. But probably the correct choice. I forgot he set up Celebration.
So with Celebration, yeah.
And then down comes Admiral Mahdi as well.
at least forces him to play another card, and now he's only drawing one Ballisny, so possible he'll whiff on cracking the immunity of 4.
Yeah, especially with that
Will
-1 to
the-
Destiny.
Yeah, exactly. And Maz -1 is not irrelevant. He's gonna okay, and then you see Osel come down too. So he's at least trying to force the issue here by having sufficient power, regardless.
Yeah, so it'll be 7 power in a Destiny to 2 in a Destiny, effectively 3 in a Destiny, right? With that -1. Especially seeing that Hujix go off the top, right? So we can assume Joe doesn't have it.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if he's playing 2 Hujix. So that's likely why you see Timo saying, "I'm going to push my chips in here and go for this."
Yeah. He'll also get to add 3 to power with the objective, with the art collection card.
Yeah. So it's essentially 9 to 2.
Yeah.
Accounting for the mass subtraction.
There's History, Philosophy, Art to add 2 to total Destiny. Joe is telling us that Tima's reserve deck is 1147.
If I'm Joe here, I'm likely to grab this, but it seems that he did not.
So that'll add 2 to total Destiny, so it's effectively adding 1, so now it's 11 to 2. What is Maz forfeit for? Forfeits for 4. Timo draws a 4 for Destiny, so that's going to become a 5. Joe draws a 5, so it's going to be 15 to 7. 4 force forfeit for Maz. That'll cover up to 12, so it's going to be 3 overflow potentially here. Timo will lose Osel. 4. I missed something somewhere. Or can't count.
She's forfeited 4. Yeah, it was 8 damage. So 4. Maz covers 4 and then 4 additional.
And there is no Hujix.
So he knows he's not getting that online this game. Yeah, losing the Hujix, like you were just about to say, and I talked over you, I apologize, was a clear indication, likely, that this path was possible. But his Destiny was 1147, so he had like 50-50 shot of doing minimal overflow versus 50-50 of at least some to substantial overflow.
So Joe losing Ancient Watering Hole from hand, Rescue in the Clouds, Rio Durant, and Yoda Keeper of the Peace from reserve. So one thing Timo can do now is, well, he's only got 2 force to work with, and he's got to use 1 of it to move Chimera, right? So he can move... I was going to say he could spread out a little bit on Lothal, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
I think this turn, he didn't have enough to do that. Move Vader. He must have. I'm sure he has Imperial Command in his hand, so Veers can draw.
Yeah.
And he feels comfortable with this setup.
Yep.
And notably, I mean, Joe's doing 2 damage this turn and retrieving 3. Timo's in fairly good position. Yeah. I mean, he has been since the error early on in the game, but yeah, I think Joe has done everything he could do to at least make a game of this.
Yeah, and Timo's just kind of had all the answers. So after drains, Timo at 20 life force, 2 in hand. Joe's going to retrieve, so he's going to be at 14 life force and 6 in hand. Timo lost Thunderflare and Mara Jade off the top of reserve deck. I assume you're going to talk about that Mara.
Yeah, I was just notably he lost a second ship and an offensive character. And he only has a 2-card hand, so like Timo's next turn is probably going to be comprised of force training, moving, and drawing. Unless that 2-card hand is quite good. And we have to anticipate at least one of those cards is Imperial Command.
Yeah. Or somebody, Mike Pistone said it could be a second gig, which also reasonable. But yeah, we haven't seen. We saw one command drawn for Destiny. That's all we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I anticipate Joe may just draw a card or two, save. He has to save at least 5 if he wants to alternatives against Thrawn. And that buys him another turn of also blocking a drain, stopping another stack, and keeping Celebration alive without having to do much.
Yeah, chat talking about moving Rey and just sitting. I might think about moving Tuas Ka in front of Veers. I don't know if that's bad.
I wonder if I don't see a need to move Toss though. At least it's a site where you're draining. If they move a guy there, you're happy to move away since it's a drain 0. And moving Rey away from Vader, I think makes sense. Obviously, she's vulnerable to being choked. It's unlikely that with a 2-card hand, even if he commands that you're going to lose anything more than Rey, and you'll take Veers with him. However, you see Leia come down for Joe, so he's likely doing something different. It'd be interesting to see if he just passes turn now with 5 up for alternatives and the ability to cancel the Cloud City drains.
Yeah. Yeah, and Leia coming down for 2 force because it's the guest quarters.
Yeah, Leia's fairly substantial here. I mean, the question will be if Teemo knows or can get his destiny in a way to choke Leia away.
So he does move Yoxkit for free to the upper plaza corridor, probably to get him somewhere else next turn. He would be able to... Oh, he's got Leia. He's going to Leia. That's much more reasonable than paying to North Corridor cancel a drain, especially when you only have 5 force that you need all 5 for alternatives. All right, so
yeah, I don't anticipate he'll be using this site text.
Teemo's going to get up to 19 force, so he can activate his entire reserve this hand. Go ahead.
So he's going to push through 2 damage with the Emperor and 1 with Accelerate, right? Or attack position. Yes. So he occupies the system, and General Veers controls that site. So he'll do 3 damage this turn. Unlikely that he's going to try to blow through the Leia.
See,
Right, so you see him lead with the ping. He left 5 force in his reserve deck, so you definitely we're going to see at least 1 battle.
Yeah. So there's 1 for the ping. It's Eller's Medak from hand.
Carl, Joe is now after the drain sitting on 11 in life with 5 in hand, and Teemo has 20 in life with 2 in hand.
And then the 2 at the capital city both came from reserve deck. That was local defense and Ketwall V. So straight through to battle phase here, where we're going to battle at
alternatives for 5.
Yep, battle at the system that'll get canceled by alternatives. Did he check his reserve at all?
No, because I believe that he may know the destiny there. I could be wrong. Is that the history, philosophy, and art? My brain I have a hard time tracking when I'm not actually playing.
I'm usually pretty good at tracking when I'm not playing, but I just wasn't. But yeah, so no battle here on the ground. He is going to spread out on Lothal this turn. So Price and Tarkin move to the capital city. Palpatine goes to the 1-1. Mahdi also goes to the capital city.
So Joe's going to be able to push through 2 damage and retrieve 3 again. Or retrieve 2, excuse me. No, 3.
It's 3, yeah.
2 damage, 3 retrieval.
And Teemo drawing a couple cards here, probably. Just don't want to draw
Yeah,
too many.
I mean, I'd be cognizant of how much I'm drawing if I'm him. You want to keep as much in life force as possible, and I don't know how much. I mean, he's ahead in the damage race, but not by enough that he can't afford to not draw.
So he did draw 5, so he's got 7 in hand now.
The fact that now he's blown through it's unlikely he's playing 3 alternatives. So Joe is no longer constrained by needing to save 5. The real question is, can he maintain in space so that he can keep this celebration alive?
All right, so Joe activates everything. Gonna go through and grab a card with keeping the Empire out forever. Mike, he did not drain through the Leia. So here's a drain of 1 at the incinerator. An Emperor from Timo, from his hand. A drain of
Emperor
1.
From hand is certainly a safe choice.
Yeah, he's pretty safe over there. Drain of 1 at the North Corridor.
Yeah, and these are cards that he's not going to deploy that are unlikely to get back in his deck, so they're very safe for him to pitch to the drain.
Chat thinking maybe Joe's going to path Leia here so he can retrieve an extra 1, but that does not happen. Joe's going to retrieve 3. Going to get back Ketwall, Local Defense, and Ellers.
Yeah, Justin points out in chat, like, he has the option of putting passenger in space. That's true, but the question is, like, what passenger would he be able to put on that would have enough forfeit to, if he cracks the 5 immunity, which you'd expect he will through 2 Destiny, to also not bring down the ship with him?
Yeah, Yoda would be the ideal character there, but I think Yoda is in the lost pile.
Let's check that. Yes, Yoda was lost, but had been retrieved, and then...
So maybe he is floating around somewhere.
I think he's been retrieved. Yep, there you go.
So Yoda onto the Han, Chewie, and Falcon. Dan did point out in chat that that 2 is still stacked on the art collection, so that can get rid of immunity and still kill Yoda. 1 force to move Rey to the guest quarters in front of General Veers. Yoxkit also moves there for free.
And we'll see Leia moves it away. And so Leia now is live and safe.
Yeah. All right, so Joe ending his turn with 13 in life force, 4 in hand.
Right, so we know he lost the Thunder Flare off the top. The question will be, does he have another ship? Because if he does, he's going to outpower him by a substantial amount.
Timo activating until there's 3 left and checking his destinies here. Yeah, that's another thing. You don't even necessarily have to use that 2 to crack immunity. If you use the 5 to add 3 to your power, you're already going to be a lot of power.
Yeah, if he has any pilot or ship, he's going to likely be power 20 or more versus 8 and a power.
So here are the drains. That was a drain of 3 total. It was Lee Sub Cyril off reserve, Rescue in the Clouds off reserve, and Cloud City Celebration off reserve.
So he has nothing to add, but I expect he'll study the 5 to at least go up to 17 power.
Yeah, that's what he does. There's History Philosophy to add 1 also. The immunity on the Chimera is less than 8, so probably not in danger here. And yeah, so now effectively 18 power to 8 plus a Power Destiny plus a Battle Destiny for Joe. History Philosophy gets grabbed here. I think these top 3 cards, we don't know what they are, right? Because it should be 3 force to retrieve, the 3 cards that were retrieved, and then whatever these are. So 4 for power here takes him to 12. Teemo draws a 4 for Battle Destiny, which will become a 5 with History Philosophy. So power of 22. And then a 4 for Battle Destiny for Joe, so he'll get up to 16.
So we'll see him stack a card and then lose Yoda.
Yep, so that does break the immunity, so he will have to lose Yoda. Teemo's immune to 8, so he doesn't have to do anything. There's an escape pod combo from hand. And we'll get Price active for the first time this game. Oh, excuse me. Governor Price grabs a sneak attack.
We're surprised to see him act. Is that a May on Price? Yeah, it's a May.
It is.
He knew what was in his deck. I'm not anticipating that Joe's going to really be initiating battles.
Do you think?
Maybe he doesn't have the command for Veers, but I'm just surprised. There is a cost to having taken that card out of your deck from a differential standpoint.
Do you think maybe he mistook the imbalance that he drew for the sneak attack? Because they're both 4 Destiny. If you just look and you say Destiny 4 red card, right?
That's possible.
So General Veers is going to move over to the incinerator. Vader is going to move over to the West Gallery. So Joe down to 1 damage this turn, and retrieving 3. Teemo drawing another card too. I mean, I guess if he hasn't deployed anything for 2 turns now, his hand can't be that great.
The timer differential is pretty incredible at this point. Joe's down to 10 minutes, and Teemo still has 32.
Here's a path on Leia to the guest quarters, so now threatening 2 damage and retrieval of 4. Alright, so Teemo drawing 2 more cards, ending his turn with 11 life force, 8 in hand. Do you give any consideration to just drawing up here and having it be 11?
I was actually just thinking about that and counting a bit. But so right now, though, I think it's going to be a difference of like a card or 2 at most. I mean, Teemo's got like a guaranteed 3 damage per turn going through, but right now Joe is retrieving 3 or 4 a turn, depending. I think it somewhat depends on Joe's hand.
Yeah. Well, Joe drains for 2 here total. Teemo's going to lose Lost in Space and Trample, both from hand.
But I don't see much upside to Joe for drawing up. So, okay, Justin's actually saying the same thing. The reason I was saying that is like he doesn't have any ways to get cards back, right? So the only thing that Joe, even though he's likely going to lose, the reason to keep playing is like Timo's been drawing cards. So the longer he can draw this out and just get as many cards out of Timo's deck, the better he positions himself in the match.
So Joe electing not to retrieve here, or not pay for secret plans at least. Timo's going to Imperial Command, but doesn't find anybody. Timo's going to Dark Time now, because maybe he does think that Joe is thinking about drawing up. Actually, it is Joe's draw phase, and he is drawing up.
Yeah, so he is drawing up. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so that'll be 13 for Timo, with 18 in Lost Pile, and 25 in Lost Pile for Joe. But Timo winning game 1 here by 13 with Thrawn against Joe's QMC. My guess is they're probably not going to play game 2 right now. So it looks like game 2 is scheduled for tomorrow. Oh, well.
I'm guessing Joe had no action to speak of to stay alive in space, and so he felt like he was only really staying alive for maybe a turn or so more in space, in which case everything was about to come crumbling down. So he just pulled the plug.
Yep. It does look like they're going to play game 2 right now. I will say I'm a little surprised by that.
Joe was apologizing for playing slow, and Timo said, let's just play now.
All right, so let's, I'm going to stop the recording.